We are red.
Oh, camera.
Red is on.
Sure. I'm not on till 5, right?
Correct.
You're starting with it, yeah.
Okay, so good evening and welcome to Thursday, January 9th, 2020, Tilton Selectmen meeting. We could all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know, did anybody else see in the picture on the Tilton Historical Society of the stage and everything here?
I did.
Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible that just the building around the whole stage, you know.
A far cry from what we've got now.
Yeah, we get the 60s paneling that they took over.
What?
So you came to the rec dances, right?
Was it like that
I
then?
forgot about those.
Yeah, the rec center had
Yeah,
dances.
the rec center.
And it still had the stuff, or did they
Well,
have,
the stage was all.
The rec center was up here for a while.
Yeah.
did they have all that building, or did they have the plywood?
I never came up here, so I don't know what it was up here.
Yeah. Curious what it looks like over there. It's all under the ceiling. It's kind of neat. So. If anybody wants to look at the picture we're talking about, I believe it's on the Tilton Historical.
Are those the pictures that Johanna sent us?
The pounded pin
Yep. Oh, I don't know under the panels. There is under the ceiling
Yeah,
tile.
it's all around the whole stage and like an arc around it. It's beautiful.
Is there anyone sitting here before I'm on? If I set my stuff here?
No, you're all set because of that. Okay, so why don't we review the minutes of the 2nd, January 2nd?
I have, on the front, the first page, under the motion to approve Child and Family Services, we probably should just put in parentheses Waypoint, because that's their name now, just for future reference, because it's now going to go into that. I don't know if we made that reference when we made the motion or not.
Well, if you see, it says just before that, outside agency dash waypoint.
Did not see that.
No, right before Selectman Constantino.
Okay, all right, we're good.
Page 1, under review/approved minutes. The sentence above the last one, changing and then replace A with the. And then I would put fund and approve in quotes, because we changed the word fund to approve.
So what do you want the quotes around, Peter?
Fund and approve, because those were the two words we swapped.
And we did check, just so you know, and we did say fund. Yep, so.
I have one more, on page 2, where it says, Selectman Constantino asked about the 194.5. It's accurate in its what we want it to say, but where it says Tim explained if the construction was approved that we would hold off securing any note or debt for the 194.5. My understanding is that he said the intent was, and discussed at town meeting last year, that it was to be held off and pooled together to obtain the lower rate. This sounds to me like Tim explained if the construction was approved that we, meaning the selectmen, would hold off securing any note or debt for the 194.5. This was discussed at town meeting last year that the intent was that we would hold that debt and secure it if the construction was approved.
Okay, I'll check with, I'll look at that.
So it just needs to say, somewhere in there explained, last year at town meeting, whatever,
Okay,
something that says, links it to last year at town meeting.
okay,
I would say whatever number they put there, then say plus the 194.5 approved at the March 2019 town meeting.
so I'll
Because we're
go,
gonna bond the two into one.
right,
We've already approved the 194, but when it goes for like total cost, that's still part of it. That way you're not
Right.
the smoke and mirror stuff.
So the reason why I had him explain that last time, because I'm getting several phone calls on it, and people are not understanding that it was discussed at 2019 town meeting, and the intent was to pull them, just as
So-
like it's written here, but
right,
we
and
need to
so,
link the town meeting with that.
right, and so what I'll do is I'll go back and check the minutes, but if it doesn't exactly say that, because it doesn't always, these minutes can reflect what you're saying now was, do you know what I'm saying? Was the intent of what you were trying to, what was trying to be described at the last meeting. So it will be
Yeah.
memorialized.
That's fine, you can go back and look at it. He did say, talk about
Okay.
intent in town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I had to change on the bottom of page 2, Selectmen Scanlon, cross out the word suggested
Okay.
and put ask for clarification if the 2 selectmen or commissioners, and cross out note and put can vote.
So Selectman Scanlon asked for clarification about the two selectmen?
If the 2 selectmen or commissioners can vote.
Okay.
Bottom of page 2, the paragraph that begins Selectman Fogg. Down towards the end of it, it says there was a conversation about prior sewer project betterment and the cost to the taxpayers. Question of how much is in the sewer commission budget, it isn't so important, but that first part, prior sewer project betterment and the cost to the taxpayers. I'd rather we didn't leave that hanging like that. It insinuates.
Okay, so I'll just go back and check and see what was left there and we'll put that in.
Well, there was quite a discussion about,
Needs to be
Why?
elaborated on.
right, more information.
Okay.
And then, on page 3, Selectman Constantino, Pat reported there were potholes in Cedar Street. I think for the benefit of those people who might read these minutes, we should just mention on newly paved Cedar Street. Because, I mean, we have potholes everywhere, but,
What was it, potholes or breaking up?
no, they're potholes, there's 2 of them I saw.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a little breaking up action, but there's a couple of real potholes.
Yep,
So,
So,
in the scene. We did mention that, but what also should be mentioned is that the chief was here and we referred it to the chief.
yes.
And that should be mentioned in
Okay.
the note.
So,
That because it leaves it hanging that we just reported it.
Well, and
The chief was here,
okay.
we took the
the
referral.
reason we're concerned about potholes in Cedar Street is because it's newly paved,
And
not because it's an old street.
I understand that, so what I'll do is go back and check, but I guess what I'm saying is if no one said it's not
Right, if it doesn't say
then it
then,
would be memorialized in this meeting,
Yeah.
that was the
We did say it was newly paved, because I said, newly paved.
and then,
Wait 1 second. The part that was referred to the chief was the broken glass beer bottles
Right.
on Cedar Street.
Right,
That was the part which
Okay.
needs to just put referred to the chief because he was sitting right here.
okay.
Okay, sorry, Catherine, go
no,
ahead.
fine. Then down further on the bottom, Bitter and Lane conveyance, the water main ownership questions. We should elaborate a little bit on what that question was.
Okay.
motion to accept the minutes of Thursday, January 2nd as rewritten. As amended.
Second that. Okay.
For sake of discussion, can we go back and look at what, or listen to what we said about the marijuana commercialization and action plan for opting out, should it become legal? Is that a question mark, or is that? It says brief discussion of
Where are you
information.
at? I don't know where.
Page 4 top, I'm sorry. Brief discussion of information provided on marijuana commercialization and action plan for opting out, should it become legal?
Right,
Is that the question that was being discussed? Or
yes.
did we, I don't remember actually talking about us discussing whether it should become legal or
No,
not.
the point of the conversation was not about legalization of marijuana. It was about towns being prepared. Should it become legal, do you want commercial establishments in your downtown? That was the point of being prepared.
So then this isn't properly written then?
Um,
Because it sounds to me like marijuana commercialization, should it become legal?
Yeah, that wasn't the question. Where should we put the shops?
Right.
Should it become legal?
Right.
for opting
More on
out.
what you
When
were
it
ju-
becomes
more on what
legal.
you just said, Jeannie, is more accurate than what you had said.
Okay.
I remember that conversation.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm good.
Okay, we're gonna vote on that. Everybody's all set? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved unanimously. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is Kevin and the Police Building Study Committee presentation.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate you being everyone again. I feel like I'm on the Board of Selectmen as many times as I've sat at the table here in the last 2 years.
Sign up is soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, after I said that, I realized what I had stepped in, so, thank you. I am not doing the PowerPoint. I am not. So tonight, I feel like this is, what we're gonna present tonight is more refined than our last visit that we had here to the presentation. Tonight's visit by our committee to the Board of Selectmen is per your request. And the reasoning is because we are before the Budget Committee next week, and I think we had a good, healthy discussion about why should we present to the Budget Committee before the Selectmen actually see the final numbers for the project. So, as I had said last meeting, do you have in front of you the final numbers by chance that we had given you last time I was here? If not, I have a copy for you. The only thing that I will tell you is, I'm going to pass one, I'm going to go past it. So there are 2 copies. Thank you. There are 2 copies that I will be giving you. The only difference.
We have 6-1.
And I'll wait for the explanation.
Thank you.
You know what we're going to do this time, Catherine? I'm going to hand those to you. I'm a slow learner, but. And I would ask that you take both of these and you put them side by side as one side by each when we get to those numbers. Thank you. So, actually, maybe what I should do first is take both of those sheets and flip them over so you can see the backs of the page. All right, and leave them face down if you don't
Kevin, do you
mind.
have an extra one?
I do. So, Joe, do you need a second set of instructions?
No, he has.
So-
I think I've got it.
So what I get,
Got
what,
an extra.
so if you can take those and flip, if you can flip those over so you can see blank white pages on the back. So, The reason I ask you to do that is because I really want to explain to you what we will be explaining to the budget committee. You've heard me to nauseam to the point where it's like, is he really going to say this again? But we met this Saturday for about 3 hours downstairs, and we talked about everything about our committee and how we want to present. And I think that but the most defining point that we'd like to make is that this committee has been fiscally responsible, and really we feel built on trust and integrity. And it was based on what you asked us to do 2 years ago, is to put everything on the table. And all of the decisions that we've made to this point have been on the surface. And if there's something that folks are not seeing at the end of year 2 when we present this to the town, then we really need to make sure that we as a committee and you as the selectmen make sure that we bring all of those things to the surface, because we feel strongly about trust and integrity. I have a slide that says who we are. Our committee plans to introduce themselves to the budget committee and to the town. We feel that it's strong. We feel strongly that we say Jason Wright's name because he worked with us all the way through to most recently, that he was on the committee, and he helped us make decisions along the way. If you'd like something different as far as the way we explain that, then certainly speak
I'm
up.
thinking you should ask Kevin, or ask
Jason.
what he would prefer.
But he was in fact a member.
He
I think
wasn't
you have
a member, but he might not want to, I don't know, I would.
No, I think you make a good point, Joe, but I would agree with Catherine that he was on the committee,
Absolutely.
and we would at least like to recognize the fact that he helped us make decisions. I think, we looked back this weekend and we said, what's different about our committee compared to the other committees that have been in place since 2006? The differences in our committee, really, we feel that we've been blessed with calculated time of opportunity. And a lot of these things were way out of our control. They were things that maybe we brought to the surface on purchasing the land. But some of these things were, it's a time in construction where it was presented to us that you really should use the construction manager process. Those options were not around in 2006, if I think I'm saying that right, because construction just didn't offer, that was not as pronounced in 2006 when we first started this. The site was available, it was at the right price. The bond rates, I actually go home at night and I can hear Tim's voice just talking about bond rates all the time, because I think that it chases him down the hallway. And the fact that if we look at bond rates, they've done nothing but go down. So our committee's been presented with that. The other thing that we feel that we have is the support of the business community, for them to step forward and say that they want to put money from the business community forward, and in the positive manner. We haven't seen that money yet, but the fact that they're setting a goal of $450,000 and we've got 25 already on the table. So that's what we feel is different about our committee, and the fact that we've been able to look at all of the work that has been done by the previous committees, and we've all done this together, and I'd love to talk to the other committee members from previous so they know that it wasn't for waste. The other thing is investing in our critical infrastructure. You've heard me say that so many times, that that's what we need the taxpayers to know, that's what we need the budget committee to know, is that this is really an investment. And it's funny that we talk about this building every time we come in here and think about how many things it's had. There's been a fire, there's been floods, the roof has leaked, and we've fixed it and we're still using it. You think of all the things that have been in here. And that's the way that we see this building. This is not just a police station. It's a community building that has a community room. It'll have the emergency operations center. It's not just for one function to house prisoners. I want to make sure that our committee is clear, and the Board of Selectmen, you look bewildered on something.
You said house prisoners.
Should I say that differently?
Yeah, it's not the main function of a police station, is it?
No. My point is that's not the only thing that's for. It's for many other things other than just what some may think of.
It's just the way you said it, it sounded like that was a primary function.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I'll try to burn that note in my head. Thank you.
Yeah, they just hold them there for short periods of time, maybe.
Holding, not housing. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, good point, well taken. Thank you. I could tell by the way your eyes were rolling. And things.
Sorry.
I could read it like a book now, Catherine. So we want to make sure that we're following through with our charge, that at the 2019 meeting, we obviously purchased the lane. There was a warrant article for the architectural and engineering for the 194.5, and then you have a written charge for us, the committee, to continue our work, and here we are. Is there anything that we're missing from the 2019 meeting is what I want to make sure that that we cover. Those are the three things that the committee felt that we were moving forward with that were pronounced from the 2019. We will review what we did, our work during 2019 post town meeting, securing the site, reviewing the needs versus the wants. That was the other thing that chased us down the hallway was, what do we need versus what do we want? And our ability to save the type of money that we saved on at the final number was based just on that, is what do we need? There's all kinds of innuendos that get spoken about, Taj Mahal, Ivory Tower, all those things. And this committee is not presenting our community with anything of such. All things considered, functionality is the number one key thing, is to make sure that this building functions for our community and not just for the police station. This building is not Kevin LaChapelle's building, it's not Bob Colmier's building, it's not your building, it's our building as a community. And think of it this way, the folks that built this building, there's not one of them that's still alive. So it was not necessarily, it's not their building, it's our building. So that's the way that we look at this. The fiscal impact to the community, that's what everyone's been waiting for. What is the fiscal impact? And we're going to talk about those numbers. And then liability reduction. I thought about that a lot more after the last meeting. And when we talk about all the things that we have and why we have it in municipal government, it's we plow the roads to limit our liability. Other than that, we'll just let people slip around and slide off the road. But we spend money to limit liability and have liability reduction. And really, we feel that this building that's what it does, is it puts us in a good spot with today's standards and helping with that liability. Reviewing previous committee work, we talked about that. We secured the construction manager. We obtained pricing. That's what we've done for the last 7 months is obtain pricing, and accurate pricing, we feel, to get us to this point. And then after the pricing is forensic review of our work, the architect's work, the designer's work, the contractor's work, all of the requests that we've all had, and that equals cost savings. I've never considered myself a detective, but forensic work of this project is really what we've done. So the next thing that we wanted to do is, when we show the budget committee next week, our final drawings. There's right before you is the final drawing that we have. And if you look at that up close, you can see some of the detail that we've all chosen to move forward with. It's the block with the brick soldier course. It's an asphalt roof. There's removing some of the dormers. Am I saying that right, Gary?
With the gable, the larger gable on
the extra gables. There's no cupola that's on the building. Those are all things that we collectively, everyone in this room, has worked on to get to that drawing right there. We've heard everyone.
What you don't see on this rendering is the carport roof on the back that was removed.
Yes, and there's things in other views that we certainly will have at town meeting. It would be we'll have the final the renderings of. We have it. It's just not on that particular poster. And Gary, do you mind just swapping out with the other two? Because that's where I'm gonna.
You want the plan or the elevations?
Let's do the elevation if we could, please.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
getting back to what you were saying before on the liability and functionality, one of the things is just our whole municipal infrastructure, where we have a town hall, good strong structure, we have a public works garage, good strong structure and very functional. And, we have the fire department, which is shared, but we don't have a good strong structure. We have a temporary will make do police station. We don't have that. And I think that part of our municipal infrastructure should be having a, proper police station that functions properly.
No, thank you, and that's,
You can add that in there.
thank you. I think that's why we're here. That's why you picked a committee to sit here and do this work for the last 2 years. And that's why there were previous committees. When we started to review the notes and some of the work that those other committees did, and we look back on the timeline, and it was within a 10-year time period of building that structure that the selectmen at the time felt strong enough to appoint a committee to review that. And let's face it, we don't want to be at that point in another 10 years, and we don't want to keep kicking this can, because we can continue to spend money and have no building, but I don't think any of us want that. These are the actual drawings, the elevation drawings that we have. You'll notice, as Gary had said, the things that you're not seeing in the picture is things like the carport. When we started to shave and save costs, those are the things that we pulled out. Now, on the previous picture, also one of the things that we need to chat about, and we will, all the way up through the town meeting, is the asphalt shingle roof. It's still an item that's on the table, and we can talk about that at greater length if you wish. But that's an alternate item. That just because you see asphalt on here, we've heard the voice of some of the taxpayers and some of the selectmen of, well, if this is going to be a 50-year building, why are we not putting a metal roof on it? Well, when we went to get costs to a number that we could all agree on, that's where we're at with asphalt. So if there is cost savings and we want to put an ad alternate in, if we do move forward with a project, then that's what we'll do. But we felt this was the most balanced and responsible thing to do as far as cost savings go. Yes, sir.
Maybe it's just because I'm 15 feet away, but I don't see gutters or town drains or anything like that on that drawing. And does that mean there isn't any, or does that mean I can't see? I mean,
There's a gutter, you can see it on this drawing here. Actually, there's a diverter here and a diverter there. Most of the gutters are on the back. This entry here has a gable that prevents water from.
but I get that part of it, but there's a whole wide expanse there with a couple of doors, and I just wondered if there was any diversion of the water.
We have, in the drawings that get bid,
Okay,
we have them there, we just didn't put it here.
like I say, I
And
didn't,
we
this
can
didn't
upgrade
see
the
it.
diverter to a gutter.
Yeah, I guess if we think that that's going to be a problem when we go to
The building surround
show that, we can.
is entirely covered with a stone drip that's rather larger than the typical stone drip.
Mhm.
So any water coming off here where people don't migrate to will perk into that stone, be taken away.
Thank you for bringing up that point, Gary. One of the things that you've heard me say before is when we did the tours of the other police facilities, we noticed that particularly in Somersworth, there was a lot of stone that was around the building, so there was less grass to mow, there's just less maintenance. In this particular case, less, as the water runs off the roof, it's not making, muddy ground out front. So we were looking at, cost savings on the maintenance as far as around the grounds go, and particularly at a couple of those police stations that we looked at, the grass there was no sprinkler system, and the grass honestly was less than desirable as far as curb appeal. So we talked about stone. As far as the elevation drawings go, those are true and accurate to this point. As you know, we talked at great length, Peter, for your suggestion of cutting out the jogs because you felt that would cost more money. So we did do that without cutting into program. So there's less corners as far as inside outside. Am I going too fast, or are we good? I can keep going. You've heard it all before, right? As far as the floor plan goes, what do you think, Gary? We've broken that down into colors and sections, so it's an easy read as we present. When we start talking about the public sections of the building, we have the lobby that comes in, and the different sections are locked down depending on who needs to be in there. When we start talking about this end of the building, the armory, the administration, those doors are all secured and locked. That's all normal standard, and typically that's by CJIS standards. It's a national standard of how those should be secured. And then obviously when we get over into the holding areas, those are all highly secured areas. The thing to keep in mind that for the public, when we say that this is going to be a public room, as far as a community room, you can come into the lobby, you can use the public training room, you can use the bathrooms, and there's really, unless you have an appointment or get arrested, I guess, there's really no reason to go into the other portions of the building, so we can allow the public to flow, so it does at least feel like it's their building. And hopefully they can understand that, you know, the general public, when you come here for a training class, or maybe whatever we hold for a town function, that they won't be able to just wander around the building. If they want to get a tour, they can call the chief, and that'll work just fine. So the moment we've all been waiting for is, let's talk about some of the numbers. And what we're probably, I don't say probably, what we're most proud of is the cost savings. You were just waiting for that, Catherine. If you want to jump ahead, that's okay. But let's think about the land and the cost savings from the land. You know, it took us years and years to get them to say yes on the land. We saved $100,000. You know, it's appraised at $450. We get it for $350. As an estimate, when we were looking at Business Park Drive 2 years ago with this particular committee, we started to get estimates that were above $450,000 just for utilities. And we started to really scratch our heads, and that's what diverted our attention to, let's look at other properties. The construction manager process, right now for the numbers that we have, we're at like an $840,000, I don't want to say savings, but shaving that we've done to get the number down to where we need it to be. And then, obviously, I would be very remiss for not mentioning emergency management grant for $125,000 that is, not, I don't want to say not at taxpayer money, but it's not at a cost of taxation to the town of Tilton. Our original number, if you want to write a number down, please write this one down, that our original number for design and development on October 7th was $4.8 million. That was the original number that we had in the construction manager process. That was the one that we all took a big gulp of air and said, okay, that's just construction costs. That's probably, we can't say with a straight face that that's what we're willing to bring forward. And then through the design and development budget, and you're not going to see those numbers in front of you, that's why I said if you want to write them down. Through the design and development budget, on October 21st, we were able to get it down to $4.1 million. And then the final construction documents that we're able to provide for you, that still stands, that we provided for you on December 9th, is 3.998, the 171.13 number. So that number you do have in front of you, because that is the final construction for the building number. So you can see that cost savings. Now let's think about these numbers for a second. We talked about this when we chose the construction manager. We said, we looked long and hard at why would we do construction manager versus a regular bid process that most people are all familiar with. And we said that we had done the research, we had met with folks, we had met with municipalities, we had met with independent engineers and designers, and they said if you go with the construction manager process, you'll be able to see the numbers on the table and you'll be able to question the numbers. And you'll be able to shave those down through your process. Now that we're here tonight, that's exactly what has happened, is we've been able to say, that's not going to work for us, we need a different number on the table. Whereas when you put the document out to bid, or you just arbitrarily say we're going to pay, I remember we did this with a fire station years ago, we said it was going to be $400 a square foot, and we could not get an accurate number, and the project failed. So bringing these real numbers in front of you, the fact that you can see them, hopefully in the end when we vote at town meeting, we can all understand them, and that it doesn't confuse us. So let's cut right to the punch and look at these two sheets that I've given you tonight. The reason that there's two sheets is because Tim has told me tonight that in talking to the bond bank, that there's a possibility that the rates and the term will change. You can see that on one of the sheets, there is an annual, if you look in the middle in the gray area, in the shaded area, I don't want to say gray area because I think it usually go over well, is 2.15%. And then you can see over on the other sheet, there's 2.5%. So depending on the term, one is a 20-year term and one is a 25-year term. So that will be a decision that will need to be made by the Board of Selectmen on the term. And you know that business better than I. So that's the reason that you have two of them in front of you. The other thing I'd like to, let's bounce back up to about halfway through the page. You can see that the subtotal to be financed, that's the real number. That's the final number of construction, the owner's cost. That's the 4.716518. That's the overall number for the building. That does not talk about interest rates or anything like that. Do you have any questions to this point? Am I confusing that part of the presentation?
I'm not confused, but I do have a question.
Okay, I saw Peter's name first.
I'm going to the gray area, and I'm calling it gray for this reason.
Yep.
Annual payment, the 255, call it 256, is based on the 47, but aren't we going to be bonding the 194.5 with it? So shouldn't we be showing that number, because now you're playing that shell game and different numbers again?
Well, that's the question that we have for you. We talked about that this weekend, and I think that it's, in the end, if that's the decision that you make as a Board of Selectmen, or maybe you already have made the, I was not here.
No, but it's part of the cost of the building. It's going to be cheaper to put it into that bond than to do a bond for 5 years for the 194.5.
You can't double dip, you've already approved it at 2019 meeting.
I understand, but
Jeannie
point
can
you-
explain
where-
it to you.
I was just gonna say, I think when Tim comes up,
as long as you make it clear that the cost is not that we have that other figures, the 350.
I would agree with you, Peter, and I would apologize to everyone that I did not understand what the discussion was at the very last meeting that I was here. I was fairly frustrated with the fact that that was making it cloudy, and I thought about that night when I sat here, and I think that's exactly what could potentially happen at town meeting. We've all seen it happen, that as soon as we start to cloud two different numbers on, when we go to bring this strategy to the taxpayers, if I only get involved with town business once a year, and that's at the town meeting, and I say, well, hang on a second, I voted on that bond last year, and you want to put it in front of me again this year? Some folks may see it that way. I totally understand where you're coming from, that yes, if we want to save money in the end, let's put the 194.5 with it.
Are you putting a report in the town report for your past year's work?
Yes.
And I would outline it there, and you can spell it out nicely, you can do it as a little table, whatever, and you have that price, yes, that's what we're financing here, but for those of you that are interested, this is the cost of the engineering, the 194.5, this is the cost of the land, all the costs, if you want to know the total cost for this round, it's X amount of dollars, this is what we have to approve this year, but this is what we'll bond. And that way it's all up front.
Hopefully folks understand it that way, and we've all seen projects fail, and it was a stellar project. It was brought to the table with a bow tie, but as soon as we start to confuse numbers and folks don't understand it, as soon as I don't understand it and kind of go on my heels, I'm going to say no, and that's not what we want.
Correct.
So that's the reason, and Tim is going to talk about that more tonight. We talked about that strategy at great length this weekend. And Tim's obviously comfortable with it because he understands it. I think the Board of Selectmen understand that, but
Well, my thing is, I'm seeing this payment, but we're not including the 194.5 somewhere, so that's going to be another cost to the taxpayers.
well, and I
It's not
think
another cost to the taxpayers, because we already put that cost
Annual
into-
payment is that for the 4.7, that's not for the 194.5 on top of it, is it?
Voted on that last year, they could be paying for that last
That's-
year.
That's not the point, Pat. The point is, the total amount you're paying for the bond is gonna be the 4.7 plus the 194.5 when we're, the
No,
Can I
Well-
just say something? That's gonna be a decision you as a board make, if that's what you wanna do. That 194.5 was paid for, you agreed to bond it last year, but it's already been paid for out of cash reserves. And
Right.
that's why I say, if you wait for Tim, he can give you the presentation. It's gonna be for you to decide if you want to replenish cash reserves by bonding that and putting that money back into your rainy day.
And and charging the monies where they should go.
So, if I may, just for the purposes of my presentation tonight, Peter, I think you bring up this, your concern tonight.
I know that the ones that are gonna be on the fence, you start with all these different numbers, it's gonna, you're in the water, dead, no question.
And I
So
think-
when he comes with the funding, you can say, that's the payment for this, but if we do both combined, this is what the payment is.
Right.
And you
that-
can then show a lower rate most likely also.
But that, I don't think that's a decision for the committee, that's a
No.
decision for the select.
You're absolutely right, Jeannie.
Yeah,
It best be ready before the public hearing. You're gonna look pretty foolish if they start asking and we can't give.
It's up to the board to make that decision,
And
not the
Tim will know
committee.
those
But
numbers.
I think
Yes.
Peter's point is, it is a cost of this project,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not shown
Well,
here.
one of the
We've
things.
paid for it,
Mhm.
but it still should be shown as a cost.
So should we, as a question to the board, show the committee, show all of the costs that we've had up to this point with all of the committees and the loss of 61 Business Park Drive, which was huge, and the loss of all of the drawings and architectural and engineering, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we invested in the project over the last at least 11 years I've been a selectman. Should we put those costs in there as well? I'm asking the
If
board.
I may, that's part of my presentation.
I mean, you have to show it evenly balanced, because, nobody wants to show, a $350,000 or $390,000 loss on 61 Business Park Drive when we purchased that for the purpose of
I think
the
there is a
police
very
station.
high likelihood, and that's why I chose to speak about it in my presentation, is depending on how I look at it as a taxpayer, we all come to the table with a different view, is that I may say, I want to know exactly what it's cost me since 2006, because that's the real cost of the building.
Actually, no, it's since 2000. There were committees. I know I was on them. There was a committee before I became a selectman.
I'll use 2000 as the
Okay.
benchmark then. I think we talked about that this weekend. 2006 was the year that we kind of had in front of us, but I'll use 2000. So if I've been a taxpayer in Tilton since 2000, what it has cost me for this new police station is all of the other things. There's almost $1 million that we've spent that we haven't seen a product.
Probably a lot more than $1 million.
Well, we probably don't want to add up those slips. I guess that's the point. So if I may, there's different ways to look at the numbers. So our committee is committed to the 4.7 million. Now, the 194.5, depending on how you want to look at that, it was already voted on last year to bond that. So if it's the selectmen's purview to bond those collectively to save us more money, then that's probably good business practice. We do need to, Peter, we need to make sure that we can rein that conversation in, so folks, because if we,
You tell them so they don't have to ask the question.
absolutely, I would agree.
Explain it.
And now, I would take a suggestion from you, of everyone in the room, are you seeing it the same way that I'm seeing it? Is that the numbers can be presented differently depending on who we are. So we can look at one big giant number of all the money we've spent since 2000. Or we can look at the work that the committee has done in the last 2 years of what we're going to be paying for on the vote this year. The vote this year, one way or the other, for the building to build the building is 4.7 million. That's what we're looking at. So I guess maybe let that resonate a little bit tonight. And again, if you have some more suggestion before we go to the budget committee, I'm all ears, because we've done this together to this point. I'd like to continue that direction.
Can I ask my question?
What would you say if I said no? Well, go ahead then.
125 for the generator dispatch and exterior surveillance is not included in the 4716. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is grant money.
We have not applied for this grant.
Yeah,
It's in process.
it's in process,
But
correct?
we mailed it out, have we sent it? We have not been awarded this grant.
No.
So we're making an assumption that we're going to be awarded this grant.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't get the grant, there's my other question.
It's a
Are
pretty-
these things absolutely necessary? Do we have a dispatch designed in there that may not be emergency operation center approved? Can we take our dispatch and put it in there? So in other words, if we don't get that grant, because those monies, are not an endless pot, can we do without these three items?
So we could make some, I guess, equipment concessions if we did get the grant and apply the next year. All of that stuff is eligible. Julia Chase has told us that if we apply with the soft match money, we'll get it. If for some reason we didn't in the first year, we certainly could reapply and get pieces of it each year. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, because what I'm looking for is, this project could go forward without
Yes.
funding these three items.
Yes.
I think that's important to note.
The other key thing to note on this is that we cannot put that in the cost of the project. Because if we do, we will not, it's supplanting funds and we won't be eligible for the grant funds.
That's right.
So we've had to dance around what the terminology would be for this project to make sure we did it the right way. We were all very skeptical about it for the first year on how's that gonna go, and we've been given direction, and that's, this is how the projects typically would be listed. So the other numbers that I find, whether you wanna use fascinating or whatever it is, but when you boil down the numbers, if you come down to the bottom under tax impact, based on the rates that Tim is showing, we will not start paying until 2021. First payment would be due in 2021. Then on a $100,000 home, let's go with the high number of the 2.5%. For a $100,000 home, $41.24, 11 cents a day. 200. You can see the numbers in front of you. I guess I don't really need to read those, but on a
Public hearing.
I'm sorry.
Let the public hear him, you're on camera.
Okay, thank
A
you.
lot of people.
So for a $200,000 home, it would be $82.49 per year, which is 23 cents per day. An estimated, on the $300,000 assessed value home, it would be $123.73 per year. That's 34 cents per day. You've heard me say this before, and I'll say it for the public's sake on camera, is there ever a good time for a project that's gonna be $4.7 million? What number, if you could pick a number of what you wanted, I would say, I don't know, 250,000, that sounds good to me. But the reality of it is, this is what it costs to do a project like this. And, the whole piece that you've heard me say before of, when you first came into town, you said, well, Tilton's a great place to live, and I raised my family here, and it's still a great place to live. Could I afford the projects that we first did when I had no kids and I first built my house? No. But now, 21 years later, thankfully I could afford it because, we do have a beautiful park. We renovated this building. We have a highway garage that's been built and is stellar, I think, to John's point. And those are the things that make Tilton a great place to live, is having good infrastructure like that. So, when we look at the cost per day, that's pretty economical. And that's probably up for judgment. But the other piece that I'd like to mention is the fact that since 2000, construction costs, and this was provided to us by Milestone, that construction costs have gone up 45%, actually, since 2007. What they provided, 45% since 2007. Is this year the time for this building? Absolutely. Why do we want to keep kicking this can down the road and keep adding up the cost? We've already paid the last 2 years to get to this point. really don't wanna spend any more money, no offense, but on architectural and engineering. We're there. Everyone at this table and in the room as a committee, we've agreed that to this point, let's get this project done. And with the bond rates that they're at right now, I think we would be, it would be a foolish mistake to not take advantage of those bond rates, as they said. I'm not going to go down through the actual, when we start talking about the needs in the building assessment, and presenting the numbers, unless you feel strongly that we should be presenting that to the budget committee. Is there anything that you would like to discuss on those, on the cost sheet that you have in front of you? We're trying to lay that out as crystal clear as possible, so you can see those numbers. One thing I did not say is that because of the construction manager process, there is a possibility, and usually this does happen in the construction manager process, that these construction costs will be, in the end, when we go to write the checks, they will be lower because of the bid estimates that they're giving right now. Dave, am I saying that the right way? Mm-hmm. That typically there will be more cost savings. That's why we've chosen to have those add alternate items kind of in the bullpen. Because if you choose, as the Board of Selectmen, to go, for example, the metal roof versus the asphalt because we've saved $50,000 on something else, then we have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to speak for the taxpayers on that. Any questions on the numbers in front of you? Is anything muddy? Is it not clear? We need to know that. Other than Peter, obviously we've talked about the one. Be good there.
I'll just bet you there's questions out there that we haven't thought of.
There is, and that's why we have a public hearing, right? Joe, I think that's a great point. That there's someone that has not heard this pitch yet that will have good questions. Some of the things that on top of all the right reasons in moving forward that we need to use as a pinnacle for the project is the current police station will go back onto the tax rolls.
Perhaps.
Well, I think there
Town
was.
still owns that property.
When and if it's sold.
When and if it's sold. That's a separate thing.
Can you refresh my memory on the decision that was made on that building being sold off? Because there was
Did we decide to get a realtor and put it on the market?
Oh, but I wasn't here, but I thought I had heard that there was a decision made that, no, okay.
I think we talked about it, but
Hopefully it will sell quickly.
Okay, I'm with Jeannie that we've talked about this before, where putting that building back on the tax rolls where it's in commercial property, it would be nice to get that money. One question that has been posed to me that it would be a decision of the Board of Selectmen is would that money be used to offset the cost of the project in the end? So when we sell the police station, the current police station, would that go back to the taxpayers to offset taxation, or would it go back to offset the project? That is not within the committee's purview, and that's our.
Listen to the general fund. That's revenue.
yeah, it's an income.
Sale of town.
Sale of town property.
Okay, if that answers the question, then, because we're suspecting, our committee suspects that question's gonna
Which
come up.
goes against the taxation,
That money that's left over in the general fund that's in the reserve fund, and if that sold, it'd be an awful lot of money left over in the general fund, so it'd probably go into the reserve fund. So the selectmen probably could make a decision to take money from the reserve fund to offset that.
Which we did this year.
However, it depends on how quickly the building sells. You can't wait for that to sell if you're done the project. You're gonna have to finance it.
Can you speak to that at town and say it the way you just said it? Because I think that question just it's gonna circulate, and I don't think the general taxpayer would understand it. I would understand the way you just said it. Would you be willing?
We have Tim.
Yeah,
So
Tim.
that's a no?
I would. Tim can say much
I'm just
more
throwing a
than
question back
I
at you,
can.
thank you. So,
write it down that you'll speak on it.
Can you sign that, please? um, okay, yeah, trying to reel my brain back in here.
But Jeannie had
See,
something.
you said you only needed 15 minutes, Kevin.
Yeah, I told you, Kevin Lachapelle has never spoken for 15 minutes or less. So, we would ask that what we've presented you in the last 2 years and all the things that we've worked on together is that you would support us in moving forward with the numbers that we present to you tonight to bring to the Budget Committee. And I realize this is not for a vote tonight, this is only out of presentation purposes, so you can see this and have a discussion before the Budget Committee sees it. We are very proud of the work that we've done in the last 2 years. We made a promise, all of us together, that we would work together on it. There's been a lot of heated discussions, but we're here. We've all been waiting for a number. What's it going to cost? And for this entire past week, I've thought of all the projects that have failed, and it was because typically they were not real numbers. What's it really going to cost me? What's it really going to cost for the construction of the building? And I think what we brought forward with confidence is this is what it's going to cost, or less, depending on what the savings is. We're asking to bond the $4.7 million. There is a high possibility that it will be less than that in the end. So we just ask that you join us in supporting the project, and it would really be nice to bring a project forward that has all the questions answered, enough to get it through to vote, and we were all up there celebrating with cutting a ribbon in April. And I shouldn't say cutting a ribbon, but digging shovels into the ground. So if I've missed something tonight by the committee, or Gary or David, certainly speak up. So way more than 15 minutes. You gave me 45, and I've got 3 minutes left, so. Questions, comments,
The only
concerns?
thing I would ask of the committee, you just heard Kevin speak on your behalf. Is there anything that any of you might want to add to the conversation? Maybe you have a different point of view, or...
Good, thank you. To be honest, I think we've all had many discussions through this, and I think we're all solid with this number. Like Kevin says, we want it to be $250,000. We want it to be that. The reality is, we're confident that this number is the actual number that we can do. We've done as many cost savings things without cutting programs, without cutting safety. I think it's where we're at. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the number that I'm happy as I could be.
Trivia question, what did it cost to build the food station that we're currently in?
You were alive then, weren't you?
And I'm very disappointed, because I thought you'd spit that out. I had to know that.
195?
$253,000.
I was gonna say
Rick.
270.
That's that building we want right now. We could buy that one.
Listen, if you want vinyl and something that's way too small, then I guess we can. So,
I got the building for you.
thank you very much. Thank you for working with us for the last 2 years. I think it's nice in the end that it feels like we've all worked together on this project enough so we can walk into town meeting with confidence, and let's hope that we can be successful. Whether you completely support the project, or maybe you're still unsure, or
Considering the last 20 years and the history of trying to get a police station built, confident I'm not. I've seen it before where they should have done it, they could have done it. We actually had a building, but that didn't work out either. 3 town meetings my first year as a selectman. Confident is not the word. Cautiously optimistic maybe, but I'm not confident, Kevin. And I've just seen it get slapped around, and I know how hard you guys have worked, you know, but confident is the word I would choose.
Are you planning a presentation at town meeting?
yes,
Have
we
you
are.
talked with the moderator about that?
Not yet.
You should, because town meeting is his meeting, not the board of selectmen.
He has made that very clear to me in the past. That it's And last year, he allowed 5 minutes. And I think that we will need your support as much as possible. If you can speak on our behalf, that we're gonna need more than 5 minutes to present a $4.7 million project. We do have a strategy that we've talked about. I will sit with him, hopefully at great length, and explain the importance of presenting our work over the last, let's say, since 2000. It's not just us, it's everyone that's ever worked on this. So if you have any say in that or any word, that would be great. So, but thank you for bringing that up. We have thought of it because it was a little bit of an issue last year. So, but if he says we only have 5 minutes, we have a strategy. So we will have a PowerPoint. It will be very clear in front of the taxpayers. We're going to try not to make it too lengthy.
You just have them all with a question and say, could you put the next slide up and ask the question?
That may be what we talked about. What are we missing? What are we missing to gain your support?
You have my support.
Yeah, mine.
Whether you had mine or not, I would always put it up to the voters, because it's not up to us.
Okay.
It's not up to us.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you. And if there's certainly something offline that...
No, my big thing is get your numbers ready just so that...
Yeah, absolutely. So the numbers you have in front of you tonight, those are not changing. Those are the bond numbers, and Tim's going to talk to you about it. That's the real deal. That's what we've all been waiting for. And some of the stress of getting to tonight was that we didn't have those numbers until tonight. We came in sideways at the final hour. We worked on Saturday for 3 hours. And believe me, there was other things to do on Saturday. As you know, that's what you do for your town. So,
I think, Kevin, one of the things is, if this did not go through, to emphasize, the 195 doesn't go away. We still have.
no, it doesn't.
So it doesn't go away. That is something that we have already spent,
Oh, yeah.
and we're just figuring how to cover our account where we took it from.
Right.
But we still have something.
So, if you have nothing further from me or the committee, thank you for everything through the last 2 years, and we're close to the finish line. Hopefully we'll see how we do with us.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair,
See you next
Yes.
time.
I have a couple questions for the chief and the captain. Looking over and you may have to defer to the sergeant on my first set.
This is on the police study.
Nope.
No, this is under the check register.
Yeah.
Where he's here, I've got some questions I'd just like to... It says we replaced a steering housing assembly on the 5A. We have a 15A with 95,000 miles, so maybe on that. We have a 16D hub assembly. We only have a 16A. That is 55,000. The 17B with 60,000 hub assembly. Are we running into a problem with these Explorers?
The Explorers, the SUVs, seem to be wearing out the hub assemblies quicker than the sedans, and they no longer make the sedans.
Seems to be happening at a certain miles, and they replace it, I think, for, I don't know, 500 or 600 parts, just to make sure it doesn't do any more damage. So the minute they hear some noise in there, they replace it. And it's happening anywhere from 70, 80,000 miles, 90,000 miles.
55, 60.
55, 60.
Okay.
The minute they hear it, they just feel like it's best to just change it before it does any damage.
And that's not warranty?
They kind of went away from the extended warranties with these all-wheel drives.
Yeah, let's remember that next time we buy a police.
They don't recall them exploders for nothing.
That's it. John, I think Eric had a question.
Just before I leave, I was just getting ready to leave, but I wanted to, I just want to say
Kevin.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
More than you know, Pat.
I appreciate you and everybody out there.
Thanks, Karen.
You're gonna do bond next, right?
Eric, did you have some?
I was just gonna say, I happen to work at a Ford dealership, and we are seeing that problem with the SUVs from other police departments, not just the police department.
One other question. I noticed sewer water bills, the usage last quarter appears to be 24,000 cubic feet, which is like 19,000 gallons. That would be 3 tanker trucks that bring fuel. At the PD, a 1 or 2 person family will use 1,000 cubic feet or less. So I don't know if you've got a leak somewhere, you may want to look through the building.
Another reason to vote yes for the new building.
There you go. That's all. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good to have as a sidekick.
I know.
Okay. Hey, Jim. Thank you.
Everything comes through.
Okay, so, first of all, I have several things to cover with you, but if you'd like to discuss the $194,500 note first, that's something we discussed a few weeks ago, and I said I would bring back some rates, and actually have a recommendation for you. I also would need to talk to you about tipping fees tonight, and then I'll give you the status of where the budget committee is with the budget. And I have a copy attached in this packet. I have a copy of the budget and kind of a proposal of how it might look going to town meeting to save some pages in the town report. And then I have a bunch of information on debt at the back. So one of the things that I'd just like to correct that Kevin said is that the rates are all estimated. So none of these payments are set in stone. When you negotiate it, you can decide on level payments, you can decide on level principal, there are all kinds of options to look at, when it gets right down to it. But essentially, what you're going to see are generally accepted ways of figuring out the payments. So, but there are a lot of other ways you can formulate these, and it just depends on what's the most advantageous at the time, what's being offered by banks and through the bond bank. So, would you like to just go right into the 194.5 while it's fresh in your mind from prior discussion? Okay. All right, so I have 2 options for you. One is a 5-year note, and the other is a 10-year note. These are both without prepayment penalties. So we could enter into the note in February and/or beginning of March, execute the note, and in August we could repay it if the board decided to wrap it all into a larger bond. If the sewer and police building bonds both pass at town meeting, both of those can be wrapped into one. They're all paid with the same source of revenues, so they can, to get a slight improvement in rate. It won't be a very large improvement. It might be the difference of 0.14 to 1.6, or 1.6 to 1.4 in some kind of rate figure, but it might be some, minor improvement. Additionally, with this short-term note, we're looking at either a 5-year or a 10-year. And again, as I said, there's no prepayment penalty. So August is when the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank offering that would be completed in July would be funded. So any monies that we had borrowed short-term for the project could be paid back at that point because we'd be fully funded. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd week of August. So in here, what you'll see, the 5-year is at a 2.49% annual percentage rate. The 10-year is a 2.69% annual percentage rate. Again, no prepayment penalty. Of these two, I would recommend the 10-year only because the 5-year, of course, increases the payments due on an annual basis, increases the burden to the taxpayer. The 10-year spreads it out a little bit more.
That costs more as well.
It does cost more. It will cost about $15,000 more over those additional 5 years, yeah. So you're looking at, really the difference of about $3,000 a year in interest over those additional 5 years. So you can see the rates on here, $6.67 per 100,000. So a $300,000 house would be roughly $19 in tax. That's on a 5 year. On the 10 year, it's $3.58 per 100,000. So you're looking at less than, or right around $10 or so for 300,000.
And what would the addition be on the 4.7 if we incorporated it compared to these totals of either the 358 per thousand?
So
you know where I'm going?
So if you flip to the, it's the last section in your packet. It looks like this. It's a debt schedule that goes out from 2021 to 2041. And in here I've got not only the construction bond by itself on page 2, page 3 has construction, architectural and engineering, and page 4 has the sewer bond. So on page 3 of this, you'll see the combined amounts of the warrant, $4,712,518 plus the architectural and engineering warrant approved last year, $194,500, for a total of $4,907,18. And you can see the two different rates here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about these rates. But the annual payment on the combined at the lower rate is $304,000. And if you look where just underneath where the payments and total interest are, you'll see the annual cost of the architectural and engineering fee is $12,068. So the total amount you're paying for the A&E costs over 20 years is $241,000. So it's roughly $46,000 cost to spread that out over 20 years.
Do we have, you said the warrant is 4.712. In these papers, and then the warrant, it's 4.176.
Hang on. And it could be, I may have,
1658.
it's possible, Pat. I had a lot of numbers flying around today. But in any event, it's representative of what the difference would
Close,
be.
right?
Right, and I know what that $4,000 difference is. So in any event, it's, but this is representative of essentially what that difference would be. So, and when we get down a little closer to what you're looking at, we'll be looking at, hard and fast numbers and fewer options. I did want to just tell you the bond bank had on the 8th, Wednesday, just yesterday, had an offering, and the 20-year was the longest term bond that they had, and that came in at 2.15%. Now, right now, they are quoting 2.25% for the July offerings, but if you were to read the Fed minutes from about a week and a half ago that came out, and you look at the environment, it is highly unlikely there's going to be a rate increase between now and July. So, and that's when the offering is done, and then it's closed in August. So, in any event, I use the 2.15 here. They are recommending 2.5 for the 25-year, and you'll see that on all these. On this first page, probably the most important aspect on this first page here is how it's going to impact people in 2020. So, were we to execute this 10-year note that I'm recommending, and if you kept it for the entire year, we'd be looking at payment of $16,655 for the entire year 2020, because we wouldn't be making our first payment until April. So in addition, in the Warren article, there's $37,212 worth of interest for a short-term construction loan that would take us from the time of after town meeting through the funding of the bond in August. And then you can see what the refinanced amount of our USDA debt is. So our total debt payments for the year would be $250. So we would be adding that, that 16,000 and 37,000 to the operating budget, where the warrant article to pass and where we need to take out the 10-year note. You can see the rest of the years as they go through. There is a drop-off in our USDA refinance from 22 to 23, and again in 24 to 25. And oddly, there's a couple of years where it pops back up, but in 29 and years after that, it drops off again. So, and then you can see the total rate impact based on our 2019 tax rate at the bottom there by year from 2020 on through 2040. So for most years, you're going to be looking at better than $1 in debt of all debt combined. And that includes the sewer bond, that includes the 10-year note, and that includes the $4.7 million.
I have a question. The 194.5, is that an outstanding debt, or is it paid for?
No, it's paid for because we financed it through our short-term financing, our line of credit.
Okay.
So currently that is financed, if you
The
will.
board will need to pay for it.
Yes, and we're basically just paying interest on that right now. So there's no principal being paid.
How much?
It's very low interest rate, but it needs to be settled one way or the other. And as was discussed at town meeting last year, it was discussed about rolling them in together, but the police building committee and been discussing internally, there were a number of concerns about whether that would be confusing to people, and I know the board has brought that up before too, Selectman Fong in particular. And so doing this, by going into this 10-year or the 5-year, you effectively are taking care of that note. Were the police building warrant not to pass, then that note is in place, and it could be refinanced if rates came down even further, because there's no prepayment penalty. But otherwise, we would just continue on with that. It's entirely possible we could execute a short-term note with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. They have a 10-year note that I think closed in the 1.5% range. But that is probably an extraordinary rate for that. I wouldn't necessarily count on that, because you have to look at the 10-year note and where it is, and I didn't have to look at that today. But if that were the case, if we went into this 2.69 at 10 years and the police building bond did not pass, then we still have the ability to do a short-term, a 10-year note with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank to save more interest.
So we have barely 2 months left before this decision is made at town meeting. Is there any reason why we shouldn't wait until then to decide what to finance this?
No, I don't think so. I think.
Wouldn't we be better off to wait?
I don't even know if we're going to finance it yet.
Well, you have the approval to finance the.
Oh, the 194.
500.
Even so, we should wait to see if the other bond passes.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to roll it into one?
Marginally cheaper, but the
Cheaper's cheaper.
but so that's certainly the board's option.
I think one of the things is, we went to town meeting last year and we asked if we could bond that money. And the town meeting asked for us to, or gave us proof to bond it. And that if we're kind of kicking it off down the road, I'm not sure if we're really doing what the people in the town thought we were going to do. I think it's perceived that we're just putting all our eggs in one basket, and we think that it's all going to go through. But they purchased something for that 194. They did purchase something, and we do own it. So my thoughts are that we should go ahead and bond that, and do what the townspeople asked, and we can always refinance it and lower the rates.
The approval to bond is for what, 5 years?
5 years, that's correct.
I think you're gonna end up confusing them more. I'm with John. We put it on a warrant article and told the people that this is what it was for. The people voted, and we should you know, go ahead and make sure that that's secured. And then going forward, in the presentation, you say, don't forget that we spent already, in what we've spent, include that in the 194.5. And we make that decision to roll it over or refinance it, whatever's cheaper. We've given that permission to Tim. He's brilliant at that, and for years he's done that for us, and to save us money. There's no reason why in the future he's gonna go ahead and refinance whatever he can to get it lower rate.
You said 1.5%, is it possible to jump on that 1.5%?
The difference there is that you can't roll that into anything else. You can't prepay it.
Yeah, but if we got
It's-
1.5%,
Well,
why would we want to run it?
Well, and that's true. I mean, that's entirely possible, but you have no flexibility at that point.
Kevin, did
But
you,
we pay for flexibility otherwise. We're paying a
Slightly.
slight.
And if you look at the difference between the interest rate is, they're so low. I hate to say that
You're giving it.
it doesn't really matter, but the difference in money is very little between the different rates.
yeah, Kevin had a question, and I recognized him a second ago.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure that I understand this, and I'm speaking as a taxpayer and not necessarily as the chair of the committee. Is that we could bond the 194.5 right now. If you
Yes.
vote tonight, we can
Yes.
bond the 194.5.
Yes.
Okay? And then if the vote for the police station is in the affirmative, and we were able to get a bond rate of 2.15%,
Mhm.
we can take the bond that you potentially, we can take a bond that you vote on per se tonight for the 194.5, and in the vote in the affirmative for the police station, we could roll it into that bond and have further savings.
Not if it's the 10-year one, like Tim had said.
Not through the,
Not
so the
1.5.
difference in nomenclature is if, we're talking about notes here, the 5-year and 10-year note, those can be prepaid and rolled into something else. A bond, there's restrictions on the bond, so there is no prepayment ability on those.
Chuck has a comment, too.
It's a question. We have you have the ability to bond that at 1.5 secured, correct?
No.
No. Right?
Yeah, note, not bond was what.
Right, okay, that note.
Well, you're talking
Why
about
would
other
we
things.
want to bond it at 2.1? That's, I guess,
That was my question just now.
that's, I don't.
Flexibility and
Part of it's the length and longer time, lower rate, you're still gonna pay more.
If the
Yeah.
police station passed in 2020,
But this gives
rephrase
you
that, when the police
security.
station passes in 2020, you do not, having a 10-year bond, as Tim just explained it, what 1.5%, that excludes out of the ability to roll that into a longer 20-year, 25-year bond with the rest of the construction. That's the only difference
No,
in that.
And I understand that,
And
I
it
don't
gives you,
understand the 1.5.
gives you flexibility.
Why would you want to refinance that 1.5 into the 2.5 possibly? That's, I guess you're securing it in two different, a note and a bond, but I don't understand that finances, that's why I'm asking the question. What would be the beneficial?
So it's because of the impact to the taxpayers and the amount of principal that you're having to repay back in a shorter time period versus a longer time period. I mean, I think, to me, the way to go in the 10-year, if you look at the 10-year note, it does change quite a bit. Just a few weeks ago, it was at 1.7, I want to say. Maybe it's 1.54 now, but it's very low. I think there's higher risk with the shorter term rates between now and July than with the longer term rates, the 20-year rate. But what you're looking at is you're having to pay back that principal along with the interest. So therefore, your payments are higher during that time frame. Whereas if the board chose to go with the shorter term one, I'm anticipating we wouldn't have this this 2.69% note more than about 6 months, because we'd be refunding it in August.
So what you're saying is, your recommendation being, obviously this is your line of work, you think it's advantageous for us to actually bond it at a higher rate because it's gonna be a shorter term. And then if it does pass, then we can work that in. If it doesn't, you're still covered with the money.
Right, and at that point, the board then could certainly
Make a
opt for
decision.
whatever the lowest rate, 10-year bond was.
I think, like,
Through
my
the
opinion,
bond.
listening to like John and Pat, it was already approved, so I think going, it might get confusing, even like what Peter was saying, if you don't put it on because it hasn't been paid for, then it's one of those situations that they're saying, wait, we already approved this, why are we paying for it again? I guess that's as a taxpayer, because I'm been in this, you know what I mean, boots on the ground, and it still gets confusing when we get talking about it. I don't want somebody that hasn't been involved to come in and go, we're paying for this again, we already approved this, so.
And it's not being paid for twice, so.
But that's the appearance. That's, as a taxpayer, we already approved this, why are we approving it again?
You're not approving.
Well, if we put it in this budget.
I think what Chuck's saying is, the regular layman coming into this
Yeah.
and looking at it is gonna say, this doesn't make sense.
So
We
let-
already said,
So
pay it.
there is, right, so there is no, right now, the 194.5 is financed for all intents and purposes. So there's nothing that you're gonna see within that warrant article that says 194,500. That's the authority to bond the 4.7 million. It's not the bond itself.
Well, I think like
So,
when Peter,
that's the
you
difference.
weren't here and Peter was bringing up a point, I think a valid point, if we add that to this, people are gonna get confused to say, wait a minute, we already approved that, why are we approving it
What I'm
again?
saying is, I wanna know the total cost. If we sweep that under the rug, the 350 under the rug, you're playing with muddy water. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, and I think it's a valid point.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, I feel as a taxpayer, if you bond it now, you're covered for what you've done, or noted, or however it is. How you do it, what percentage and time frame is up to you, but I like the fact that it's taken care of. So if whatever happens with a project, no matter what happens with the project, you're covered, your expenses back.
I just have one request, as, again, an observation through, my time of going to town meetings and public meetings. If there's a suspicion of mistrust, because they don't understand it, unfortunately, whether it's right or wrong, if there's a suspicion of mistrust, we typically lose the trust of the taxpayer. Now, I completely understand all of the discussion tonight, but my request would be if there were a way that you could consider in your vote, whether it's tonight or another night, to separate the two. To John and Pat's point, the taxpayers asked that we bond this money last year for 194.5. They asked that we bond it. Even if you bond it now, but yet roll it into a later bond, I think it makes it less confusing. Unless I'm missing something.
Tim, you have a proposed motion here for the 194.5. Is, by understanding that's your recommendation?
Well, it's up to the board which you prefer, the 5-year or 10-year.
You're the finance guru.
If I could, the other item about the note is that if you were to go with the bond bank, we would have to wait until July to submit for the 10-year, whereas we could have this done prior to town meeting. I don't agree with all the comments made, but you know, I'm just trying to do what you know, what I think the board would like to do and what the townspeople would like in seeing this project through.
Just me, I would like to do what's going to save the taxpayers the most.
That's a
And
10
if that's waiting till town meeting to bond it all, or if it's this motion,
I made the recommendation that we go with this 10-year because there you have the most flexibility. You can wrap it into a separate bond all by itself, a 10-year bond through the bond bank at whatever the 10-year going rate is at that time in July, or you can wrap it into a bigger bond if all the articles pass, or you can continue to pay this. But my thinking was that you would only have this for about a period of 6 months.
Chair recognizes Joe.
This time I make a motion that we enter into a 10-year note with Franklin Savings Bank for the purposes of financing $194,500 of architectural and engineering fees approved at the 2019 town meeting. The payments will be added to the debt schedule into the 2020 Selectmen's recommended operating budget.
Second.
Discussion. You already had quite a bit on this.
I did to death.
Is there anything else that anybody had any question of or a point they wanted to bring up before we vote on this?
Can we ask questions or just? Just the board?
No, with the motion on the floor, and this is something really jumping out there that you see.
We're missing
Yeah,
something.
jump up and down.
Yeah, he can ask a question.
Well, let me ask the question?
Why not?
Well, because the moderator usually runs
I just want to make
Chairman
sure that I
knows
understand it.
when we have a motion on the floor, if there's something
Chairman
huge that
knows.
we're missing, then
Will the 194.5 be brought to the town meeting in 2020?
No.
Thank you. I support completely what you're doing.
It wouldn't have anyway.
Yeah.
But that's what.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Yes, under
All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All that discussion. At least we know what we voted on.
Can I go home now?
Thank you, Kevin.
You can sit up there.
No, Tim, I totally understand all of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Still more.
can I take a moment to thank Tim? I mean, he's been an invaluable service and asset to this committee
Not necessary.
and the town. It is very necessary
No, it really
because
is.
if you
Too late.
look at what you've done for this committee and all the police building committees prior to this, you're phenomenal.
Okay.
Great asset.
So the other two items I had.
Chuck seconded.
Thank you very much. Tipping fees, I sent out an email to the board regarding the increase in our fees for 2020. We've been absorbing the increase the last few years. It hasn't had a big impact, but this is going to make us topsy-turvy with what we're charging our haulers for the tonnage. So my recommendation is to go up to $72 per ton in the hauler's fee. And we have not upped this amount, I want to say it's probably been about 6 years. So,
So moved.
I have a question.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second. We can do discussion.
What exactly is the
We
motion?
will go into the $72 per ton effective with the January invoice for tipping fee.
Second.
Catherine, discussion?
Is that enough to capture administrative costs?
it is. We'll generate between $6,000 and $7,000 a year based on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I've automated the invoicing process, so it takes maybe about 15 minutes to generate the invoices. And then the administrative assistant does spend more time on it, sometimes having to collect invoices when a hauler is late, that kind of thing. And then also the administrative assistant also takes care of all the licensing for the haulers. So that's probably another day or so per year, maybe more. So, but I think I think it does capture it, and it's not too severe an increase that's going to cause any difficulty for any of the haulers.
Thank you.
Recall the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved, unanimous.
Okay, great. And then so regarding the budget, if you go to the budget packet I gave you, There were only a few things that the budget committee had not decided. One of which I don't believe they voted on the sewer commission amount yet. And they just pretty much ran out of time last night. I don't think it was for any other reason. It was getting late, and so anyway, I think next week that will probably be voted on. They had not voted yet on the warrant articles, and they'd also not reviewed or discussed the revenues yet. But in any case, there's a $1,507 difference between the Board of Selectmen's budget and the Budget Committee budget, and that's all in the outside agencies portion. And now, as you look at this budget document, I was trying to go from the 18 pages of landscape to 10 pages of portrait, because when we go to print our town report, it gets expensive, and we're trying to manage to a certain size. So some of the comparison, like the 3-year average, the 2017 and 18 numbers are gone, and some of the other things. But it does have the essentials, which are the 2019 actuals and budget and percent year-to-date, as well as what was requested, what was approved by the selectmen, what was approved by the budget committee. If you go to page 10 in the outside agencies, you'll see the difference here. The budget committee approved Lakes Region Mental Health or Genesis for $3,000, whereas the Board of Selectmen did not. The budget committee approved $1,500 for Child and Family, formerly Child and Family Services, now Waypoint. The Board of Selectmen approved $3,000, and then and I believe those were the two differences. And there was one other. Oh, in the youth assistance program, there was a $7 difference for some reason, but such as it was. And I'm going to readdress that with the budget committee. I think that was just.
Well, it's the selectmen that approved the wrong amount, because they requested, what, oh no,
251.
and they looked at the line, okay, in this budget, they
I
looked
think
at the budgeted amount.
Pulled last year's figure.
Last year.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So those are the only changes there. I will draw your attention to some good news. If you go to the very back of this report, you will see that our unaudited revenues came in at $2.145 million versus the estimate of $2,067,000. If you back out that shared revenue that was unexpected, we're within a hair of our estimated revenue for the year. But don't expect that every year. Now we do, as I mentioned before, we do have in the 2020 estimated revenues that second year of the shared revenues from the state. So that is that. And is there any reason why, given that the collective bargaining agreement warrant article, we don't have a number yet for that, is there any objection to providing the warrant articles to the budget committee for review otherwise?
Jeannie has her hand up.
Just one point, because I've heard selectmen talk about this. We've got a draft of the warrant articles, but you haven't necessarily approved the order. So I don't know if you want to look at that and approve the order before it goes to the budget committee, or if you're good with the way that it is.
I say let them have it without that influence. Well, it might influence somebody one way or the other if we've approved it or not approved it. You know, if we approve them all, they're inclined to approve them all. If it's just a blank slate, they'll make an independent decision, I think.
They, you know, budget committee?
Yes.
But just so I understand, because it's in a certain order now, as it goes to them. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, does it go to them and you say it's not necessarily in the order that we plan to have it in? Could it change, or, that's all I'm asking.
Well, it could change at town meeting too. Somebody could make a motion.
Realistically, what order are they gonna be in?
realistically, the two big bonds need to go first because of the hour wait time, correct?
That's right.
Well, it's also
I
required
think-
by law.
Well, yes, but I did hear a question about, does the sewer bond go first and then the police station?
Doesn't
bond
matter.
goes second?
Put the PD first.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Just
matter.
wanna make sure. So that's the order that it's in now.
Unfortunately, what happens is everybody shows up for the big things, and then we see the mass exodus.
Did you print out a recent one of the warrant?
You got a more recent one last week, there have been no changes since the last one.
I had left, the one in my book is the one that doesn't have the sewer article in it, so you're just gonna put that second?
It is second.
Okay.
And I can,
I
I
don't know.
can send you all an email with the more
I
recent
don't know what
ones.
I did with it.
So I had some concerns, looking forward 2-3 years with the school district and the fire district, with how it will impact our reevaluation numbers. We recently had reevaluation, and we're getting our school district taxed at a certain rate, but that's based on the old valuation still. That kicks in next year, so we will not see that big, actually, school district is 2 years out.
It's 2 years.
So we're still, our school district rate that we're paying is still based on last year's valuations, and will be for 2 more years. So 2 years from now, we're gonna get a pretty good wall.
Damn it.
Well, let me start with the fire district.
Do you want to come back to this and get
Well,
the numbers
I'll just,
next week? Would that be better?
Because, well, first of all, Northfield's valuation, I just traded emails with Stephanie over in Northfield, but, as you know, they've got a lot going on over there right now. But basically, their value went down slightly because of some change in the utilities. So there was some utility change that occurred in Northfield that caused a slight decrease in their value. She said that property rates were pretty much unchanged. They're looking at their, they last did their full reval in 2017, and she said they're doing the cyclical update. So I took that to mean data verification. But I haven't spoken to her directly to find out. What I can tell you is that based on just sort of a back of the envelope look at for the fire district, because fire district is 1 year back. So in the 2020, we're going to be looking at our 2019 value and Northfield's 2019 value, and we're going to be going from where we are just over 62% of the budget up to around 64% of the budget for the fire district. So, and of course, that's the net amount. So that's their, their operating budget less their revenues, which comes up with a net amount, and then we're paying, practically, not quite 2/3 of that amount. I did get a very brief review of where the fire district budget is. The commissioners, I hope you're all strapped in and sitting down. The commissioners' budget.
There he is.
Do you feel the back of your neck?
Well, the commissioners' budget was up because they're looking at, and maybe Eric would like to talk to it, but because they're looking at additional personnel. So that, from what I understood, it's somewhere in the 15 or 16% increase in the operating budget. And then the budget committee, from what I understand right now, has reduced the budget for the prior year by about 2% or somewhere in that neighborhood. But nothing is final. So, they're going through their process. But the fact that we're looking at a higher shift, a higher portion of this bill that's going to come due in 2020, it impacts us, and it's further. If we're looking at a $500,000 increase in the fire district portion, our 2/3 of that, it's not hard to figure out. We're looking at better than $300,000 of tax that's going to come into, the Tilton residents. And businesses are gonna pay.
Yeah, okay.
You wear that all to pass.
Well, you said residents, and it's like the residents don't pay all that money.
No, that's
The
right.
businesses pay half-ish,
A little more than half.
a little more than half, so our residents would pay a third, their residents pay a third, the
And-
businesses pay a third.
And then with the school district, so the challenge right now with the school district, the Department of Education, I guess there are a lot of new employees. There's a delay in getting some of the aid dollars that is normally out at this time of year, hasn't been sent out yet. So the things that we know are that that our attendance, our membership attendance has gone up quite a bit. So we are approaching, we're not very close to Northfields, but we're getting much closer. We've had more kids move from Northfield into Tilton, which has had, a double effect, if you will. In fact, one family of 6 that I know of. But this has been a trend, and if you look at their charts of membership by town, we're on the increase. So that doesn't bode well for us. And the 70%, so it's 30% average daily membership and 70% equalized value. That is also going to hurt us.
Catherine?
70% value, and only 30% on what actually makes the cost.
That's the formula. That's the 5-year formula.
Kind of stupid.
I had, when I
Catherine,
was.
did your question get answered? I know
I have a question, but it's for our fire commissioner.
Oh.
The new hire, my understanding is that there's problems getting the other ambulance out because of staffing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the new hire will help that,
Well, yes.
part of it.
Part of the chief had originally requested four new hires. The commissioner, after much debate, settled upon 2. The idea is that we have a call staff of about 16, or 15 or 16 members. Well, of that, not all of them can go on a medical call. So if there's an ambulance call in Tilton, there's about and I understand there's, if I say 25% or 23%, there's 75% that it's not going out, but there's about a 25% chance that ambulance needs to be, another ambulance needs to go on another call, simultaneous call. So our problem is that we cannot always get that second ambulance out, especially during the daytime hours, because the call staff, they don't respond like they used to, back in the olden days, I guess is the way, but they can't leave work. They can't go on that call, so we have to rely on mutual aid, which can add to response time.
So the rest of my, I guess, comment is, or question is, those ambulances generate revenue.
Yes,
Right now, that revenue goes into the apparatus fund, correct?
correct.
Is there a way of changing the language of the apparatus fund to allow some of that money, that revenue, to offset the staff for those ambulances?
I think it's been explored. I don't believe it's allowed the way that it's written.
That could not be changed with the warrant.
But keep in mind that that apparatus fund is also to use to help offset future purchases, capital improvements.
Mhm.
So like this year, coming out of that is for SCBA's. It's like $320,000. It's something that we can't avoid. It's a 15-year lifespan on these things, and we're right up against it. I think it's like May or June of this year. So it's part of that. There's a new fire engine. So if we keep tapping into that fund, at some point, if we want to buy a new fire engine, then we're going to have to look at taxation. Those things aren't cheap. The chief has a very good capital improvement plan, that relies on not taxing, raising those funds through taxation. His projections based on revenues, in a couple of years, because we have an engine up this year, we're gonna ambulance up next year. You know, in a couple of years, those funds are gonna be way down low. So, I know last year, there was I was the one commissioner for hiring, there was a grant available, I forget what it's called right now. There was a grant available that, yes, we would have to absorb those costs of additional fire staff, but it was a way to ease into it. Now we have to jump right into it, feet first, and we go into it. You know, it's something that was debated, much debate at the budget committee level. You know, the budget committee's tried to we went through, we cut funds out to try to kind of offset some of that. And one of those things that we did cut out of the budget committee, there was because at the time when the commissioners went through the budget, there was a question about purchasing a piece of land, and there was a $500,000 addition to that. The budget committee had removed that. So the budget committee removed $500,000 right off, well, not right off the top, but that's the big ticket item that the budget committee has gone through. And, you know, I believe that there might be a push to only add one person to staffing, and that, you know, that may not accomplish the goal other than saving money. The idea is that we're not, the fire commissioner, the fire department, the guys feel like they can't provide the service that the residents are expecting because we cannot get that ambulance out, that second ambulance out a lot of the time. The revenues this year were down about $15,000, and part of that was contributed because if Samerton has to come and take you to the hospital, then they get that revenue. But likewise, if you need that ambulance, you may also have to wait an additional 10, 12, 15 minutes for that ambulance to get there because there's a protocol that has to be followed to determine if the ambulance can get up.
Hope I'm not having a heart attack.
Well, that's, I mean, I'm not trying to do a scare tactic, but that's the reality.
Well, it is.
You know, I was at the fire station once, and, you know, I had to go and check, you know, on the guys once in a while, and they were sitting down for dinner, and the dinger went off, and not, as soon as the captain got in the engine, another call came through, and well, he goes to the other call, you know, so it doesn't, you don't know when it's gonna happen, you know, so.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
So,
Thanks.
along that, Eric, hopefully as part of the discussion, you can give the amount of time with those calls that are coming in so that the people can weigh,
Well,
is the cost of this person.
I don't want to get too far off the agenda here. So we got a lot of questions for the fire district, I guess. There'll be some hearings and all that coming up,
There
so
will be hearings for it, but I'm sitting in the audience. And
we can come join,
I'm
watch.
only one fire commissioner, keep that in mind.
That's true. Thanks. So that's that. Yeah, if you could see in your spare time, put together some of those numbers, you know, projecting out what it, you know, what it's going to look like. You know, I'm concerned about that, you know, school district one when it really hits us with our increase in our numbers and then our evaluation going up and how that will play out.
I'm glad you brought that up because we have currently, I'm a representative for Tilton on the school budget committee, and there's a vacancy that we now have. We've been able to not find somebody that who was advertised for months by the school district, looking for somebody that was interested in serving on the budget committee. And so this is the seat that Wayne Brock formerly held, and so that'll be, you know, an open for, I imagine, a write-in or for somebody to run for. But we really need to have representation, you know, at these meetings. And it's a good group. It's a good group, but they're long, and I've done this for a long time now.
What nights do they meet on?
This year we're meeting on Monday nights.
Great segue into the stipend policy.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Did everybody get it all right?
Did you get the note I sent?
I put copies in your file too.
Okay,
But not the note.
I think I did see your
Yeah,
question, and I think it's answered. It had to do with if somebody, a volunteer, or if a member was replaced by another member through the year, and I think,
so, yeah, let's say if somebody comes in, somebody leaves after
yeah,
April, or in April, and then somebody comes in, let's say, the budget committee in July, and then they attend all those meetings. It doesn't specifically say that they will get, how they will get paid.
well, it says volunteers who join at random times during the calendar year will be paid a prorated stipend based on attendance and time served. And then the bottom line is the Board of Selectmen will have sole discretion in implementing this policy.
Mr. Chair.
I like
I think that answers it.
that.
Catherine, I really like this a lot. The bottom paragraph is what we would approve, correct, adopt? Not the top one, the bottom one.
Well, the bottom one shows changes
Changes to the
that I
top.
made
Right.
from comments that I received. So that, you know, you can approve either one, but that's why I highlighted it, so you can see that
So
those
I,
are added.
Oh, I thought so was harder to read.
I really like this paragraph, and I,
I'm sorry.
No, don't, I should speak.
What do you
behave,
think?
behave, Selectman, please. No, I really do like this. The one thing that I question, and it really legitimately is a question, we do have elected officials that use the terminology of stipend. So, in addition to this, I mean, we should definitely approve this, no problem at all, but in addition to this, if we're making a policy, should we also include how elected official stipends are dispersed in that umbrella of stipend
Talking
policy?
Like the Budget Committee and the Selectmen.
Mhm. So if you have a budget committee member that shows up 1 out of 15 meetings, he or she is an elected official, we still need by law to I think that there's a discrepancy about how to disperse that.
I'm not sure you can do that with an elected official.
You have to do it, you have to pay him, correct?
No, it's a stipend. It's a stipend. It's like, I looked up the law and I had conversations with the federal government and whatnot, and it has, I hope the paper is here, it has to do with, so if you pay somebody more than $600 in a year, that's where it becomes, is it a stipend or is it pay? As this states clearly, a stipend to help defray the cost of out-of-pocket expenses that are incurred attending meetings as a volunteer. And that's why that's put in there, so it
Well, I agree.
differentiates between
And
pay and stipend. To answer your question, we could put a sentence in here that said, for the intent of this policy, elected officials are considered, will be treated as volunteers. Or something, just
Well,
some language.
I think that
says-
we need to talk about that, because I remember at one specific time a few years back, I have to laugh every time I say we made a phone call to New Hampshire Municipal Association, because Catherine and I one day asked the same question side by side. We got 2 different answers, but that question on elected official the answers seemed to be very vague. And I guess I'm putting that out there to have, let's vote on this tonight, let's approve this tonight, that's my feeling, and enter it into a stipend policy, but continue our discussion and have, Jeannie follow up, and we have more discussion on how we treat a elected official, i.e., it wouldn't matter for the selectmen, I don't believe, but I think it's very important for budget committee members, because I don't want them to think that they fall into this, because I don't think they do.
Well, the budget committee definitely there in chapter 32, there's language specifically about membership, and attendance and how
Right.
members are removed and et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the amount they are paid for a stipend
Right,
is not determined by the budget committee.
no, you're right.
So,
I mean, so that would have to go into a different, to my opinion, into a different paragraph. But this paragraph, something should be said, like you did, that, but, you know, the elected official, whatever, but I don't know, we can't say tonight that an elected official is okay with that,
well, you're right, we
until we
should,
know what it is.
we should look at it closely and then come up with something to add to it.
Eric had something you want to add?
Just I'll add, since I was affected by your stipend policy last year. You just take into consideration
Do you want to see this?
the percentage of the meetings that they attend?
Did you, yeah, here's the
Yeah,
policy.
There's the language right
But
there.
if you attend
Oh.
80% of the meetings, you get 80% of the
Check this.
stipend.
Check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one's easy
I
to
don't know
read.
what percentage.
That's
About
it,
the second
bottom
paragraph.
language, that's easy to read. I don't know why.
One of the things, you know, I'm concerned with, because we had a policy, and then other boards had, other different committees had sort of different ideas on the policy on it. And then we made a policy, 2 months ago, we voted on it, 3 months ago?
We didn't vote on a policy,
We
we
just,
just voted
on all alternates,
you know,
we-
paying.
paying
We
the
voted how
alternates.
it would be paid, and
We
we
didn't
wrote it,
make-
we wrote up a
We,
policy. We wrote up a policy and voted on it.
We did, yeah, we did, it was
So we
very.
did that, and then we looked at it and we said, oh, well, we can't really do it like that. And I think this is great. This hits exactly what I think it should be. But if we have any questions on the legality of it, or if there's any questions of it, we should say, we all like this, and then send it out to be looked at, and then accept it. So we're not changing it one more time. If there are any questions.
but you're gonna, right, you're gonna need to check on the, I agree with you, you're gonna need to check on the legality of this one as it pertains to budget, which is our only committee that receives a stipend. So if you look at the first one, it says, the town of Tilton pays volunteer board, committee, and commission members a stipend to help defray the cost of out-of-pocket expenses. So that would include the budget committee in this paragraph. And I don't believe, it says the stipend is paid at the end of the year based on attendance of 80% of the scheduled meetings. I don't believe that we can do that to an elected official. I want
Yeah.
clarification whether we can or we can't do it.
So it might be just as simple to take out the word volunteer in this.
No, because your committee and commissions, 99% of them are volunteer with the exception of
But it
budget.
just, yes, but it would say the town of Tilton pays board, committee, and commission members a stipend to help defray out-of-pocket, blah, 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 and then.
That would still include them. That would still include the budget committee.
No, I mean, if,
Right, right, if we get
it could be as
clarification.
simple as that, that's why I said it could. Eric had his hand up.
Eric?
I don't know, just I guess a clarification question. So let's just, for example, let's say the planning board has $1,000 for stipends, and I don't know what that is. Let's just say it's $200 a piece, because, let's just say there's 5 members, it's not, there's 7. But there's 5 members on the board, and you have alternates. And the alternate winds up attending, over the course of the year, 80% of the meetings. Are you now increasing your budget line item by $200 because they attended that, but it's not in the budget?
Well, we budget ahead of time for them.
No, but you budget a set amount for that. So does that, because it says right here that they get paid $400. So if they get, let's just say it's a 10-member board, because I'm doing simple math here, because it's 7 o'clock. And there's 10 people on the board, actual sitting members, so they would get $4,000, okay? But that board has alternates, and that alternates, so would that be $10,400?
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
this
where does that
one,
come out of the budget, because in your budget it's not
You have to put it in the budget
You
at the
have
end
to
of the
put it
year.
in the budget.
Budget line
In the
adjustment.
past, we've always put it in the budget. This past year or two, we've taken it out of the budget for alternates. That's where the problem
That's how
came.
this all came up.
Ginny has,
That's how it
Well, I was an alternate affected by this, so I was
Yeah,
just trying to.
that's how it
get
came up,
clarification.
Eric.
okay,
But
And
I-
it
Ginny?
shouldn't be.
But he brings up a good question, because the way that you have this worded, if somebody gets 80% through the year and they leave, and you pay them 80% of the stipend, and then somebody else comes in, are you then not going over, even if you anticipated paying all your alternates, if there's a switch throughout the year, are you not going beyond your budget? Can you anticipate if somebody's gonna work halfway through and then somebody else is gonna come in and,
You can't do that.
so you're gonna go
Of course
budget?
not.
We'd have to go over, because you can't anticipate who's gonna leave and who's
we
not.
have to find the money.
We do it
We'll
line
find
by
it
line.
some, from another
Well, I mean, I
line.
understand it's a bottom line budget, don't,
Right.
I get that, but
We
when
should,
people look at line
we
items.
want to know what you,
They,
you're in for
someone,
for
someone's
the
gonna go,
year.
well, geez, you know, the planning board, geez, they went
So they're not-
$800 over budget, why are they going $800 over there?
As long as you got an answer, who cares?
If they
You can
attend every
answer.
single meeting, and if I were an alternate, that would be my goal, to volunteer as an alternate, to attend every meeting, in case somebody, a regular person didn't, I
Well,
would
hopefully they
know
know ahead
what,
of time that they're gonna need to be seated,
So,
because some.
how do we want to, go? What do you want to do?
I'd just add, well, I'd really like to,
So, if we approve it, that we like this, we all agree on this, but just
contingent
have it
on,
reviewed contingent on.
contingent on clarification for the budget committee, okay? How to treat budget committee members. So I'll make a motion that we approve the Town of Tilton stipend policy as written, contingent on further clarification from legal on how to treat, disperse for elected officials.
I'm gonna repeat that about elected officials again.
So contingent upon clarification on how to disperse the stipend, the stipend disbursement for elected officials,
Specifically talking about
specifically budget committee, right?
Second. No,
We have a second. Now,
It's a legal thing, Joe.
Discussion.
We can't do
Why don't
it.
we wait till we get the response and then craft it once and be good?
Yeah, I can't.
I'm gonna go no, so if you wanna
I'm
put
gonna
it.
go, there's too many what ifs built into your motion for me. If this happens, then it's gonna be okay.
No, I like this as written, but you have one problem. We have 99% of our committee, commissions, and boards are volunteer, and that's not an issue. But we have one committee that's made up of elected officials, and they are treated a little bit differently as far as somebody not showing up all year long and show up for one meeting.
But
I think-
Take the word volunteer out of here.
well, I,
But that
It's
has,
still committee, Joe.
that only has to do with how someone, so somebody as a member, how they would be removed as a member. I have never read, there's nothing in chapter 32 about paying the budget, that we're required to pay the budget committee a stipend.
We're not.
You're absolutely
required to
right.
pay study.
That's my point.
I don't think personally that there's any problem with the budget committee and this. Because chapter 32 only talks about,
we,
Now,
well,
let's put it off for a week
we,
then. and
yeah,
then-
we can see,
yeah, I mean,
a
there's no harm in
consensus.
waiting.
How about, we just do a consensus, that we're happy, so that we're not very sending Catherine to change stuff unless something.
No,
comes
I'm
back
very
to
happy
you.
with this.
I am.
Yep.
Everybody happy?
We're punting,
All
right?
happy. Eric, sounds pretty cool to you too?
Happy.
We don't
Yeah.
plan, is that what
We
we
saw the
I just
motion
had to
hanging out
for how
there.
many meetings?
Yeah.
I'll withdraw my motion.
That table says don't need to write on quick basis.
Nobody seconded
Okay, so that,
Yeah,
that's,
Yeah, Catherine
it. Oh,
did.
you
I
did?
withdraw my second.
The motion and the second is withdrawn.
yeah, oh, that's right, well, we're,
I
withdrawing
would-
that whole motion?
I withdrew my motion and Catherine withdrew her second.
Okay, done. Okay, so, let's see, selectmen report, so I'm up first here. too much stuff really going on there. I've got announcement. The filing period to run for office in the Tilton 2020 elections is January 22nd through January 31st. Any candidate filing on the last day must file in person.
Say the dates again.
So the filing period to run for office for the 2020 elections is January 22nd through January 31st. Any candidate filing on the last day must file in person.
I have a question in regard to your statement. Does that mean that if it's not the last day, they can phone in and say, hey, write my name on the board? So you would always have to pretty much apply in
That's the
person.
impression I just got. I didn't call up on
No.
Wednesday the 22nd, say,
I
hey,
I think you fill out,
I thought there was paperwork to
Yeah,
fill
you fill
out.
out.
You don't pay the
Yeah.
dollar anymore,
No,
Yeah.
you save the buck.
no, there's paperwork.
but you pay,
But-
yeah, you have to sign.
You have to
right,
bring
but
it in
you can,
person.
you can, I mean, at least what I recall when I did it was I just filled out the paperwork and sent it in. I didn't have to show up and, at that last day, only if it's on the last day.
Only if it was the last day, but
Right.
somewhere along the line, you have to show up.
Well,
I'm
or
guessing.
mail it in.
Okay,
Won't you stipend?
if you're gonna mail in your running, what's the saying, mail in your...
I know. You don't, we don't let a thing slip by. We're just weird. So, Pat, go ahead.
I just have one request that we talk about the letter in non-public because it involves personnel. That Jeannie put in the FYI file,
It's at 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock.
but that was, we have two non-public,
No, we have one non-public, 3 issues.
2 issues, got it.
3.
That's all I have.
Anything about,
Oh, so, thank you, Jeannie. This, for CBA meetings, we have Tuesday, January 14th at 4:30, and Monday, January 20th at 10 a.m. I would suggest to the board, to the chair, to spend some time in non-public on the 16th, is it?
So public
16th, so
non-meeting?
that we can update you.
Non-meeting.
Non-meeting. Yeah, that's right, it's CBA's non-meeting. And then we can update you at that point, they're gonna give us their proposals.
so Pat, when were you suggesting that, just so I didn't hear that, sometime after the 14th?
If you wanna wait until after January 20th, then we'll have more, a larger update, but I would suggest that. Right, Pete? After the 20th.
And, is that it, Pat?
That's it for me.
Catherine?
Yep, good.
Peter?
I just have a question. Perambulation. I stepped on it. When was the last time we did it?
2007, it's on the website.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I know.
When are we supposed to do it?
Every
Oh,
10
no.
years.
2000,
I thought it was every
No,
7th.
no. We did it after perambulation. Joe did it when he was a selectman, so it was after 2007.
yeah,
But the one on the website's 2007,
Yeah.
because that's when Dave Wadley,
Right.
Albert,
Al Flam and Bill Lawrence, and Bill Lawrence was one of those guys.
well, he
I
was,
say
he
once
was
every
before
7.
that.
In 2012, I perambulated the borders of
Every
the town
7
of Tilton.
years.
Yeah.
If you'd like to hear this. Whatever it says there, I understand, and that's the only thing that they can, lock us up or take us to court over, is failure to perambulate. I walked the borders of the town, I found all of the markers but one, and I dropped the ball. Elizabeth Dragon was the city manager. And I would call her, and then she would have a guy call me, and then I would call the guy back, and then he wouldn't call me, but then he would call me out of the blue, And I go down there, but he was on vacation that week, and it became a comedy of errors, except for the comedy part is that the new one was never filed. The markers weren't changed, but one marker is missing.
Customs.
Okay, so we're still doing perambulation. And even if I had filed that perambulation, a new one is due. So, Peter, how would you like to go and perambulate with me?
I'll go with you, Joe.
All right, because I know where the markers
Since
are.
you know where they are.
You do know that it is very specific, you have to notify,
Right.
you're perambulating town, so many
50, I think it was
days.
51.
I did this before, I didn't file it, but I did.
Okay, I just didn't know
This
if
is,
you knew this.
Chapter 51.
Springtime?
I know years ago, some selectmen went out, and they forgot that part.
Springtime or winter. Now, see, part of the town of Tilton's border with Franklin goes through a large area of swamp. I did it in June. Not only were the mosquitoes, I mean, New Hampshire grows mosquitoes. Some of these babies I thought were swallows. You avoid that in the winter. The monkey crawling through that swamp part, you avoid as well. I'm suggesting this time we do it in winter time. Hopefully when it's been really cold, and if you have snowshoes, that'll definitely help.
Or there's little snow.
Huh?
So we
Or
should,
there's little snow.
Or there's little snow.
so we should try and set up a date and do the proper notifications.
Mhm.
Um,
Actually,
Somebody can,
Karen Ober actually went with me. And I couldn't get anybody from Franklin to go, but if you want, over the course of the next month or so, I'll make the notifications. We'll get a time to go. We can do it in a Saturday. I know where the markers are.
Please take pictures.
I'm gonna take pictures, I did the last time. Taking pictures and getting a GPS location with the phone.
Great.
So we have an exact, and we can plot those points on a map, which they didn't get plotted last time.
Sounds
But I
good.
know, all right, I'll put it together and be in touch with you.
Okay, that was all I had.
Joe, now for you.
I just got an assignment, and I will say that
True.
I found out this week that Mr. Chris Meinholz died. And he was a former police chief in Northfield and firefighter and man about town, both towns. And he was a good guy and will be missed. And that's my only thing to say.
Okay, so that's it. And town administrator report.
Okay. So you all got a copy of my weekly update. There are a couple action items. The first one is last week I sent out, or handed out to you, information on commercial marijuana. And what I'm asking you tonight to find out is, do you want to add a warrant article to ask the community to weigh in on whether they would, if marijuana becomes legalized, if you want recreational marijuana sales in Tilton. And I give you some suggested language. I'm not asking you to vote on that language. I'm asking because I would want to make sure the language is right. But the point of it is the way that the way it is in the legislature right now. You know, Keno, you have to vote to have Keno in the community. The way they're setting up the legislation, if marijuana becomes legalized, you would have to opt out. That means it happens. And the only way you can make it not happen is to take a vote. And much like the alternative therapy, the ATCs where they had the medical marijuana, they were ready and they just went right into the community. So really it's asking this community to give a sense of where they think they should go. I know in Manchester, they've actually created an ordinance against having shops in their downtown area. in Merida, I will tell you, and I know you don't care what happens in other communities, but I'm just.
I like Meredith, don't get me
But I'm
wrong.
just telling you what other communities are doing. In Meredith, we did vote to put it on the warrant, to give the community the opportunity to weigh in on this question. It's not saying that it can't happen, because then the next step would be, go to planning board next year, and the planning board at least would have a sense from the community because you took a vote on it. And it may be the community votes and says, no, we're fine with that. If it gets legalized, we're fine having this in our downtown.
So it's a non-binding, just informational,
Correct.
and helps
Correct.
if it does come up.
Well, as this is written, it's binding.
Well, but it's
So
not.
would you say, would you write
That's,
something like,
that's why I said,
would you
I'm
be
not
in
asking.
favor of?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, I'm not asking you to vote on the language, I'm asking you to vote, to vote on the
So
concept.
you're gonna write it as though it's a question, would you
Yes.
be in favor of?
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea. I'd like to get, see how the community weighs in on.
This doesn't say downtown.
and I'm saying,
Just
I
recommend.
shouldn't have even put the language there. I'm saying, all I'm asking you, is this something that you want to consider putting on the warrant? And if you, not this language, but the concept. And if you do, then I'll come back with, and I just gave you an example of, what could be, but that's not what would be.
As long as it's specific to downtown in there,
Yes.
I would definitely support that, but
Okay?
Everybody have consensus? Matt, you're raising your eyebrow. What do you think?
I'm sitting behind the desk as the selectman and not as Pat Constantino, so I would wholeheartedly put it out on a warrant for the people to vote on it, not my personal opinion.
It's an information gathering warrant, right?
Exactly, that's all it is. It's just to get a sense from the community.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Fine. We're gonna have how long a meeting then in March? About 7 hours? We're gonna have a break for lunch
well,
at
maybe
least?
2 days.
Wait,
With
no.
some brownies.
Joe, can you cook burgers for us for
I'll bring
an
my grill
Joe,
I love a
some
smoke
brownies.
break.
Yeah.
and
We don't
brownies,
have
the good brownies.
All right, well, why don't I just put something
Did you
together
say
and you can look at it?
Sorry.
All right, sewer bond hearing. I'd like to schedule the hearing for January 30th at 5 o'clock. And I've confirmed with the sewer administrator that the the engineer will be available to attend. Will you approve that? Because I'd like to get it in the newspaper.
This is at during selectmen's meeting
Yes.
for the sewer thing?
That's, the selectmen are in charge of warrant.
We're the ones who are putting it on the
We
warrant.
approved the putting a bond on, so we have to have the bond here.
Yep.
Oh, it's just for the bond. I'm thinking that you're putting it out for the other thing. Oh. I'm thinking that's gonna be an awful long meeting.
Well, we have to do it,
Yeah.
so I think that's
So
a good
it's,
date.
really the question is do you want it on this date or a different date? That's all.
It should say, I have written in January 30th for the bond hearing.
But I have
Does
not.
anyone disagree?
I have not. If that were the case, it would have been in the paper.
I'd like to make a suggestion that we have the bond hearing on January 30th. Gene, what do you think?
At what, 5 p.m.?
That would work.
Now, the engineer
What it
there?
says here.
Jeez, I might be able to second that.
So you're good with that? I have a consensus?
Yes.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
All right, great. Town report. We'd like to use Brayshaw again this year for printing the town report.
Yes.
We estimate 400 copies, 125 pages each. Estimated cost is $7.50. We've budgeted $3,000. I'd like you to approve that if you would, using Brayshaw.
So moved.
All right. Is that, do I need a formal vote or is just consensus?
Yes.
budgeted for
Just do
Yeah,
it.
we do.
Just do
Okay,
it.
and you don't need me to move anything, we just
so-
do it.
I talked to you about this, I think, last week. We need to think about a dedication, that numbers, or that time's coming quick. Who do we want to dedicate it to, and the theme, which I'm guessing you want it to be the 150th.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can I say this?
Well,
But Joe, you gonna write some?
I was just getting ready to write. Why don't you write yours down and
Why
then
don't-
pass it?
Do you want to take a vote? We have till next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody do some, put their
Yeah.
thinking caps on, and next week come up with some suggestions.
Can I ask, can we get a list of previous ones so we don't keep repeating? When you start thinking,
I can't see it.
I was gonna say, it's,
how far back would you like me to go?
Catherine knows them all. Actually, we have copies of the town report. All we have to do is open the first page.
No.
Yes. After 20 some odd years as a selectman, I think it's
No.
time.
You know how I feel about this.
I don't care. It's 4-1.
Quite frankly,
Well-
don't vote for it then.
So, we have till next week.
There.
Oh, no.
Sounds good, so next week we'll make a decision.
And the only other
Some
thing
of
about
time
the
I
town,
would say you're right.
Folks,
the only other thing about the town report is,
I'll do it.
you'll do the town report?
Write it. The
Yes, you
selectmen's.
ha- Yes, you have to
selectmen's
do
know.
that. But the second issue is, we're obviously,
Kids,
Pay attention.
children, class.
we're obviously going to put lots of pictures in about the 150th and the activities. One of the other big items that we have been working on is the police station. So the plan was to put something in there for the rendering and the layout of the town report, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay with that, or if there was an issue with it. Because it is something that's happened in this last year pretty significantly.
Well, the committee is putting in a report, right?
Yes, and it will probably be in their report, I would
So
guess.
are you asking if we want to do something beyond that?
No,
Oh, okay.
all
I
right.
do think that there should be something, that committee, I mean, not that all the other committees don't work hard, they do, but that committee has really worked extremely hard on this. I mean, exceptionally. And that there should be something in there from the Board of Selectmen, just acknowledging that hard work. Like, they were here Saturday, so that's dedication.
Okay,
I have one suggestion for, in memory of, did we do that?
no,
Molly, you want me to say?
Well, they're dead, so
Let
they
me-
can't.
I
I'm assuming.
I would say for a long time was a Tilton resident, and then the last few years was not, but gave back every single day to the community of Tilton, every single day, and I really believe in wholeheartedly Cheryl at Polly's,
Huh.
as a suggestion.
okay, well, we can make the decision next week with everything, okay.
Interesting suggestion. Good suggestion.
So, I won't go through the FYI, you can look at that up. If you have any questions for me, let me know. We already talked about the warrant article, the town warrant, which you said we can go ahead and send off to the budget committee. The outstanding items on the warrant included the zoning amendment, which I'm waiting for, Article 5 on the CBA, which we're waiting for, and Article 10 on general municipal operations, and that's the.
We don't know that to the deadline.
Right, and the order of the warrant, and you're good with that. There was a question about, Catherine asked about the ice rink, that it is all set up, now they're waiting for weather, when they can fill it and it will freeze, so just, huh?
Yeah, today,
Um, Yeah, it's snow
Saturday
to
will
plow
melt
too.
any snow left over.
Yeah, it's snow to plow too.
Yeah.
And that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Okay, so-
I have a sort of question. It's not really a question, it's kind of a would you picture. So Peter brought up earlier the water bill from the police station. It really is
Yeah.
extremely high.
Yeah.
It is 3 times the amount that town hall uses.
Yeah, but they have officers taking showers. I was taking that, but I'm trying to do it like a single-family home and all, and
But
it's,
it's still,
I think looking at that number,
we
it's
have to
very
look at previous
typical,
quarters to
it's
see.
very typical of somebody who has a toilet that's not stopped running.
Something.
That's what that is. Every time I've ever seen those numbers, filling up a couple swimming pools, it's because
Yeah.
actually it's,
bad.
you know, if you go into the bathroom, you think you hear the toilet running on and off. So it's $5 for a ball top, or it's hundreds of dollars a month. So maybe if they could have Kevin take a look or ask him
make
if
sure somebody follows through with that.
questions.
I don't know if they took us seriously.
Have they heard that going?
Okay. And
Money,
Because
it's
they-
just money
Jean,
down
you
the
have to go
drain.
and check the toilets.
It's the evidence all going
You
down.
want me to go check the toilets?
I thought that's what he was.
No.
Good, job.
So, what else?
With the brownies.
You had some other things on there, I guess. They've got the solar exemption, so they got all their signatures?
No, they just, I just wanted you to see the draft. They still have to put the 25 lines on there. They know they still have to collect their signatures, but I just wanted you to see it when it came into the office. To let you know it's
I
coming.
signed it. Did you sign it?
Um, Anything else on my
For you, Jen.
FYI?
For you. I want the taxpayers to answer it.
The election, February 11th, been confirmed.
At the high school, right? High school,
Yeah.
middle school, high school.
Looking at the back page there, you've done a lot of other things you've done. You emailed to NHDOT to follow up on the Conservation Commission concerns. For the island, message board. How are we going with the Bittern Lane? I don't know if you saw the comments from to DES from Conservation Commission.
I didn't, but at our last meeting, you had directed me to come up with a list. I did do some research because one of the statements was that if we conveyed the property over, well, first of all, and I'm sure you know this, the road would just be discontinued. Class 5 road would be discontinued. And that's how it would show up on the warrant. But there was a statement made that the property owner would then take ownership of the fire hydrant, and that's not true.
It's a water line, not a fire hydrant.
But the water line too, it can be true, it does not need to be true. And you, I believe, brought this up a while ago, you just have an easement. So there was a statement that said, well, if you do this, they're gonna have to take it over, and it will be theirs. And that's not true. It doesn't automatically happen like that.
The water commissioner told us that
But if
they wouldn't assume responsibility for a line and hydrant on a piece of private property. That's like forbidden in their bylaws or whatever. So we're in a hard place on that one.
Unless there's an easement. If you got an easement,
Right,
that's the
exactly.
access.
But they said unequivocally, if that became a private road, they basically would abandon ownership of
That's right.
that line.
Which I
That's
don't
what they
think they
said.
And
can
the
do.
property owner would have to maintain it,
Yeah.
so that's why I asked.
Right. Damn.
That would be
Yeah.
like the sewer commissioner saying, okay, no more sewer on Cedar Street, you guys gotta put in your own septic system to maintain it yourself. I didn't see how that was possible.
And I'm being told it's not possible.
Do you have
Oh,
anything that really supports that?
I don't know that I brought the email with
But you
me.
do have something, okay.
I didn't just come up.
If I was the owner of property there looking at getting that road, I would not want to own that water main.
Recently, they filed, Samahama Realty, filed a dredge and fill permit, file number 2019033918. Conservation Commission reviewed it, and they said, the Tilton Conservation Commission is received a copy of standard dredge and fill application for 10 Bittern Lane from Samahama Realty. Given the number of issues at this site over the past years, commissioners have concerns about the proposed project and would advise the New Hampshire DES Wetlands Bureau to closely monitor the project details. There's been a consistent pattern of not always following regulations and rules regarding wetlands and wetland buffers. In March of 2018, town regulations about the wetland buffer were ignored when the owner cut trees in the wetland and in the wetland buffer. In January of 2019, snow was repeatedly piled next to historic Ice House Pond and in the buffer. In addition, the current plans of the reference a 12-inch HDPE culvert, while a map in the same packet suggests that it's an 18-inch HDPE culvert. The commissioners question the amount of drainage that will be flowing down the slopes from Lowe's and wonder the total impact of this drainage has been taken into account. And with those things, in another dredge and fill thing, I don't think that it would behoove us to transfer access per se at this time until we see that they're being good stewards of the wetlands around there and the wetland buffers. That's my thought.
And one doesn't really have to do with the other. The road doesn't serve the general public. It doesn't serve our taxpayers. It costs us money to maintain it. Now, having them be good stewards of the wetlands, whether they own the road or not, is something we're gonna have to deal with. But to continue to maintain a road that doesn't benefit the public, the taxpayers, I don't think is right.
Maintaining proper drainage and stuff like that through there and public access to it, and they could let's chain it off, and we would know what's going on down there. That's the wetlands, and that Ice House Pond does belong to the public.
But
And I think
there are laws in place when they violate wetlands. And so you call DES, it's pretty strict, it's pretty rugged.
Fortunately, right now, we have a road that we can go in there and access and see those. So just my comments and Conservation Commission comments.
But we're still a long ways from any transfer of roads.
We didn't want,
I honestly, I don't see it happening this year. There's just too many.
Too many things come up.
and that's what I was saying, try to wait a year and see how, do it right.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not planning to wait a year and be here again next time around. I'll be doing the work that needs to be done so that we're ready next time.
A lot of variables.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right, I'm the chairman.
There you are.
You're waiting for my cue. Okay, so next thing we have is a non-public, and after that we have other business, unless there's some other business that you would like brought before the...
My other question on Cedar Street, but that'll be another discussion for another day.
We all have questions on Cedar
Yeah.
Street, buddy.
No, this is an opportunity. What do you have for
Sure.
a question?
I'm just curious what the town's doing to protect the taxpayers against a road that's fall apart,
Yeah.
not even 48 hours after it was paved.
Well, what I can tell you is that we are taking notes as we go. The Public Works Director travels the road on a frequent basis, and till the ground thaws kind of, and we see the extent of the remediation that needs to be done, hard to say what we're gonna do. And then we've got the water in the road issue that used to be,
Seems to have subsided, I don't know if it's just.
the ground's frozen, so it's hard to say. Wait until spring. What we're gonna do remains to be seen, but we're all definitely on it.
Part of that last one.
Perhaps we could ask the Public Works Director for an update, especially with the potholes.
They're getting larger.
Mhm.
I just worried that when we, like this weekend, if we have 60-degree weather, that's gonna be spongy.
Well, I think it's great that we did it. I think Peter
It's great
suggested
now
that we,
because when it gets snow, it melts right like
but,
that.
I mean, I think it's great that we did it this way and didn't just put a finish coat on it. And as Peter suggested before,
The question
What
is
happens
the
is-
problem in
No,
the
we didn't.
mix, or is it the problem in that they didn't put it thick enough?
No, the problem is in the ground that you paved over.
Mm-mm. It's
No.
right in the
Well,
seam.
this is what we gotta find
The
out.
pothole is in the seams.
Yeah, but if you look at the road crumbling in other areas, it's a result of unevenness because underneath it, it was like a sponge. And so if heavy equipment such as a garbage truck or a dump truck went over it, or a fuel truck, it shifted. And you can actually see.
We're right back till we gotta wait until
They would have compacted prior to the paving.
No,
Otherwise,
So-
it was a sponge.
well, then
Okay.
that-
In the
the
spring, we're
director
gonna
didn't
have to
his
do
job.
some,
It was that bad.
Yeah, we'll have to see what we have
some
to
type
do.
of mitigation. It ain't over yet.
Oh, take a fistful, those are really good, buddy.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we go into non-public per,
Put your sign up. Have a nice
oh,
day.
thanks,
Thank you, Eric.
for 91A:3, paragraph 2, A, B, and C.
He does a good job as commissioner.
I'll second.
3 issues, right?
Second. Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Dawson, yes?
Fog, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Scanlon, yes. You're good, close it.
Okay, we are red. Red means run.
Great
At
revolver.
this time, I would like to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel issues permanently and as they pertain to legal issues until such time as those matters might be taken care of.
Who's up? Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved unanimously. And anything else to come before the Board of Selectmen?
Just one thing. John, motion to adjourn?
Here you go.
Second.
All those in favor?
Oh, I'm in favor of that.
Aye.
And before 8 o'clock, John. Nicely done, buddy.
Aye. 6 minutes.